Hey everyone, so I've gotten a lot of requests for a beginner scripting tutorial series, and I thought about it, but I just think there's already heaps of beginner scripting tutorials out there, and they're all by people who are much more experienced than me. So instead, I'm going to make a series that's a bit more practical, so it lets you learn to learn, if that makes sense. This series would probably be best to learn alongside someone else's beginner scripting tutorial series, where you learn the syntax and just basic code like if statements and all that. But yeah, this will be just a good series to learn alongside that. So today, I'll be doing understanding Roblox scripting. Roblox scripting is just like anything else related to coding or computing. It's basically all about input, storage, processing, and output. So I'll explain all these in depth. So input would be like a key press or a mouse click that the computer can detect. So your computer, the player's computer, will detect input. Then storage would be storing values like the player's level or their inventory. And then we've got to do something with this information. So then we've got processing, which is taking information such as the player buying an item, and then letting the server know that we need to add that item to the player's inventory. But at this stage, only the computer knows that the player has an item, so we need to display this to the player somehow. So we've got output, which is, just for example, a GUI which shows the player's inventory on screen. It's something visual that the humans can understand. Then we've got local scripts and server scripts, which is not really unique, but it's a bit special to Roblox. So I'll just explain the difference between the two. You've got local scripts that handle everything that happens on the player's computer, and then you've got server scripts that handle everything that happens on ROBLOX'S servers. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory, but just as an example, detecting key presses or handling GUIs would both be handled on local scripts, and server scripts would handle storing the player's level and giving the player an item. So a way to think of it would be input and output is in local scripts, storage and processing is on server scripts. This is because servers aren't able to detect when you press a key on your keyboard, but your computer is able to. So that's why key presses are handled in local scripts. And if we handled GUIs on the server, then there'd be lag every time the player interacts with the GUI. So that's why we need to handle it on the player's computer. And then there's stuff like the player's level and their inventory, and this is done on the server. And it does lag, as you've probably noticed before in some games. If you attack, then it might not do damage like instantly. There's a bit of a delay because it's got to communicate with the Roblox servers. But this delay is worth it, because if we handled this sort of stuff on local scripts, then it would be really easy for hackers to give themselves free coins or items, or give themselves infinite damage, that sort of stuff. So when we handle this information on the cloud, the only way for hackers to give themselves free stuff is by hacking Roblox servers themselves. And if they're able to do that, then Roblox has a big problem. Yeah, now I'm just going to bring up an example script and just go through it and explain all the lines of code, how I'm using local and server scripts, and how I'm incorporating input, storage, processing, and output. Alright, so I've just got this starter place set up, just a test place. In starter player, I've got starter character scripts, and then a server script in large humanoid, a local script input detection, and a remote event. So I'll start by explaining remote events. Remote events basically is how we communicate between local scripts and server scripts. Yeah, that's basically it. I know AlvinBlocks has a more in-depth explanation on what a remote event is. His video is called something like filtering enabled. You can go look at that video if you want. So I'll just explain these two scripts here. I've got enlarged humanoid and input detection. So in input detection, first we define UIS, user input service. This is just a service made by Roblox themselves. It lets us detect input, because it lets us detect the user input, and it's the service for that, so that's why it's user input service. So we store that in a variable so that we can refer to this later on. If we didn't do this, then whenever we used UIS, we'd have to use this whole line here, and that's not that practical. We wouldn't want to define this every time we want to use it, because that would first of all make our computer lag, and second of all, it's just it doesn't look clean in the script. So instead, we define it as a variable at the very start, and we just need to use the variable whenever we want to refer to this user input service. I could actually call this anything I want. So I could call this DvZoid, and then I just have to change this to DvZoid, and it would do the same thing. But what you want to do with these variable names is just name them something that's relevant to what it represents. Then we've got another variable here called remote. This just references this remote right here. Yep, and then we've got a function. So uis.inputBegan, this detects when input is received by like from the player and by the computer, and it passes through another variable called input, and this is basically an object which is it sort of corresponds to the input that the player put in, and then here this input has a key code, and basically what we do is we check if this key code is equal to the key code we want to detect. In this case, I'm detecting for the key code E, and if this is true, so if this is equal, then we fire the remote. So yeah, we fired a remote, but then we have to actually do something with this remote. So what we could do is, well yeah, I'll just show you my server script. We've got the remote defined, and then we detect when the remote is fired. So this will fire the remote, and then this function will fire. This code basically will make our humanoid bigger, but you're probably wondering, like, why couldn't we just put this code inside this local script instead, and yeah, we wouldn't have to bother with remote events and everything. Well, the reason we don't do that is because in the local script, code is only running on our computer. The code isn't running on the server, which means other players in the game wouldn't be able to see that our player had become bigger if we do it in a local script. If we do it in a server script, it runs on the server, which is it's global. Everyone in the server will be able to see this change. Yeah, so I can maybe put this into practice. So over here, what I'll do is I'll just define local humanoid equals don't bother too much about this, but I'm just going to define the humanoid, and then I'm going to copy this code and put it in the local script instead, and then I'm going to disable. I'm going to move this. How do I do this? Yeah, I'll just move this into here, into starter character scripts. I'll disable this script, and then I will just comment out this. Alright, so let's see what happens when we run code on a local script. So this is the same code that would normally make a player bigger, but we're running it on the local script. So when I press E, we've gotten bigger. It looks like it's worked. But you'll see that when we go to the server, look, our player is still normal size, and this isn't what we want. We want everyone to be able to see that our player's gotten bigger. Like if I go back to the client, we're bigger on the client, but on the server, we're smaller. And everyone else on the server will also see it like this, that we're small. So what I'm going to do is just undo all of this, and then I'm going to undo this, and yeah, we'll just see what happens now, now that we're running the code on the server script. So yeah, we'll just load in, and then when I press E, we've gotten bigger just like it happened before, but now on the server, the player is big, just like on the client. So yeah, that was how you can understand Roblox Studio. Yeah, once again, it's probably best if you watch this along with another beginner scripting tutorial that teaches you just basic syntax, just so you can understand why I've got a dot here, why I've got a colon here, just like small things like that. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if it was helpful, I'd appreciate a sub and a like. It helps keep me motivated to make more videos like these. And until next time, see ya!